everyone, it's Carolyn, here to share more information for your awakening and ascension journey support. So today we're going to talk about soul contracts and how do we know we have one, which can be difficult. Additionally, more importantly, how do we know when the contract is done? So I'm going to talk about that and give you some examples because it has become very clear to me in the work that I've been doing over the last 4 years that we create all kinds of contracts before our incarnations, and then we come in and we can't get out of them when the time is ready. And I'm going to give you some signs that you can use to determine for yourself, particularly, and maybe for others, when it has come to an end and you need to move on. All right? So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to give you some real life examples of this because it can become very clear to you when you start understanding the patterns of how soul contracts, or sometimes what I call karmic debt, and that's just how I use it, because we do have to repeat things over again in other lives. We come in with the same people, we play different roles, and we do it differently to get it right this time, okay? So that's happening a lot. In fact, a lot of our trauma, a lot of the situations that we're dealing with now in this incarnation are a result of past lives. But we don't know that because we've never been taught that. And that's part of the work that I actually do in my business, is uncover past lives so that you can start journeying through them and intellectually understanding them. Because as I've said before, the soul knows the story, right? The body knows the story because the DNA carries the library of you and it's all there in cellular memory. But the human mind doesn't. We don't understand it. And when the mind, body, and soul can understand that past incarnation and how it impacts today, wow, so much can start to get healed on your journey. So I'm Carolyn Zaiser. I'm a channel, I'm a distance energy healer, and I'm a spiritual awakening mentor. And I bring these channels and information to you for your awakening and ascension journey support. So if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe. And also below, you're going to see a link in the description box that leads you to a free video on how to create flow in your body for health and wellness. But what it also does is it connects you to my email list. Once a week, I send out a channeled message from the light keepers, who are the angelic beings that I channel on a regular basis. It's there to support you for your journey forward every week. So that's free content as well. So join me there if you will too. So what I'm going to do today is I'm not channeling from the light keepers any poetic message at all. I'm just going to talk through this situation that I have seen in spades with my clients and so much with myself. Because I do understand a multitude of my own past lives, and many of the contracts that I've created for my incarnation this time are playing out now. So I'm going to hopefully give you some of those examples from journeys so that you can relate that back to how maybe you can start identifying what's going on in your own journeys. All right, so first of all, you can argue that in our life journey, everything we do is a contract, okay? Everything we do is set up. Everything that comes our way is here for us, laid out. However, we're going to talk today about the big things, the big contracts, because we do have soul contracts that come in where we're really here to focus on redoing something from the past differently than we did previously. So one of the first things I want you to know is as we come in to our human journey, we have a multitude of contracts typically. Some are smaller, some are larger, some are, literally everything that happens each day is something that we are learning and doing or redoing over again. That said, not all contracts are meant for a lifetime, all right? And so what we're going to focus on today is primarily relationships and also work contract. And what we've done in humankind is, and that it's breaking down now, obviously it's shifting and changing, but a great example of contracts that people feel like have to be for a lifetime are marriages and partnerships. But I'm just going to stick with marriages because, it wasn't too long ago that divorce was seen as, oh my gosh, the worst thing that could happen to you, and you were shamed and you shamed yourself and you were looked at differently in society. You were meant to be married and married forever. Didn't matter what was going on. And it was the rare person who got divorced. Well, that all shifted and changed in the last 20, 30 years. And now Obviously, multiple partnerships are seen throughout a lifetime. Divorce is common and accepted. But again, this is about the fact that not all contracts are meant for good. And I'm talking about relationships. We are meant to journey through our lifetime and have multiple different relationships. And I'm not talking about multiple different marriages necessarily, but I will tell you that this can be part of the journey, that you are to connect in with multiple people to complete contracts throughout your journey. But the key is, how do you know when one contract is finished? So this may seem very cold, very unemotional, and that, oh my gosh, you mean my partnership, my marriage might not be for a lifetime? Well, it may be. You may have set it up that way. But what we're going to talk about today is how you can identify when it's not meant to be. Because that's when everything can come crashing down to the ground. And honestly, you can end up going through your dark night of the soul all over again, or for the first time. Oftentimes, this is how people can awaken. But at the same time, it also can drag you down when you stay in a contract that is not meant for a lifetime, or even for the length of time that maybe you're in it. All right? So we're going to talk about that. Signs and symptoms of just staying in something too long and that it's time to move on. And this can be a job. This can actually be anything, all right? But it can be a job, most assuredly. It can be a career also. It can be, in particular, relationships. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, a marriage, but a relationship, a friendship, a partnership, a work relationship, whatever that is. We're going to talk about that today to give you some ideas. Now, that doesn't mean you have this going on right now. You may not. But I guarantee you, you do throughout the course of your journey. You may be able to learn from this and look back and say, oh my gosh, that's why that individual came into my life. And then, oh, that's why this happened to me in my journey and why all these things started to happen. Or you'll be able to say, oh, so that's why that ended. All right. So hopefully this will help you today. So first of all, how do you know what your contracts are and your karmic connections? Things you may be doing over differently this time to get it right. Do it differently this time. Learn from the past. Well, first of all, we don't know our past lives. Unless you're working with somebody like me, and you may be able to have a past life come through in a session, and then you start working it. But most of us don't have a clue about past lives. We're never taught this, that we carry through into this journey, our past lives, and that they so dramatically affect us. So our higher self leads us and guides us through this, and we're just kind of unconscious about it until we're not. So first of all, know that you won't necessarily know. But what this should do today is be able to give you an opportunity to look back and go, oh my gosh, that was an important relationship. Lots of times people will stick out. If you think in history for yourself, it's like big relationships or really significant events or somebody that came in and like blew your world apart in some kind of way, be it large or small, but it was kind of an anomaly, and then maybe they were gone, or it just churned up your life and you learned something big out of it, something major happened, and you'll know that. So as you start thinking about your past, you'll be able to apply that to future situations, to start to understand, wow, is this a contract that I have that potentially I need to take a look at? All right. Now, not all contracts are meant to be severed right now. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying this hopefully will help guide you to know when something is finished in your journey, to move on to the new contracts that you've established and that will free you up to be able to do that. Oftentimes, too, a very important person will come into your journey, a strong soul connection will come into your journey to assist you in some of these major contracts. So just know that, like the really significant people in your journey, that's where you can kind of sit back and really reflect on what that relationship has been about and what you've been through, and then delve into what is it you've learned, and then be able to understand that oftentimes it's the big players in your journey that are here to work these contracts. So what we're going to talk about now is how you know when it's complete, all right? And a lot of this isn't pretty, but it depends on where you catch it. And we're not all good at that because, like I said, we're not taught this. So, I'm not here to tell you, oh, well, you missed the boat and you should have done this then. No, you continue to learn throughout this, all right? You continue to learn throughout this regardless of how long you stay in this contract. But at the same time, you're going to see things start shifting and changing to basically wake you up consciously to understand, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't for me anymore, and then to make that shift and change. So I'm going to talk about the signs a contract is over or nearing its end. Your higher self is going to start making you very aware if you don't pick up on the signs on your own. And you can argue your higher self is always working with you, but your higher self will not give up. All right? Just keep that in mind. So one of the first things is, have you lost all passion and inspiration for the thing you're doing, like a job or a person in your life? Has that relationship broken down completely? Have changes started to unravel what it is you are doing or who you are with? And sometimes this can be over a long period of time. So for example, with a job that maybe you've enjoyed for some time, and now all of a sudden you're starting to talk about, gosh, I think I want to do something different. What else is there out there for me? Not feeling that inspired passion to be able to go in and do your job day to day. Now, I know many of us feel that way regularly, that we're just not that jazzed up about our work. Well, you know what? That could be a sign, all right? And we do have contractual relationships in our day-to-day work. It doesn't mean you necessarily have a contract with that job, but that activity may lead you to completing contracts with the people that are in your awareness and in your day-to-day because of that job. Does that make sense? So that means those contracts are finishing up. You've done what you've needed to do. You've learned what you've needed to do. So this unsettling feeling, and again, this is about feeling. It's about gut knowing. It's about really tapping into, what do you feel? Do you go to work every day with a horrible gut feeling of, oh, I don't want to do this anymore? That is one of the first signs with a job that something else may be ready for you. And I'll give you an example. I know someone who, I'm going to use their journey throughout this, hopefully. I think it'll make a good example. They, for years, had talked about, I really should quit. I really should quit. I really should do something else. And then as it got nearer and nearer, this is over years, and I'll tell you the rest of that story, but nearer and nearer to the time, it was more about, oh, I want to do something that, so there's a framework starting to set up of what they really want to do. What this individual really wanted to do was being articulated. Instead of this, I really want to do this. But beforehand, it was more just, I'm not feeling it. But there was no real understanding of what they wanted to do. And so what started to happen is the higher self then started throwing in inspiration and passion for something else. And so this individual started thinking of new things they could go do, and then picked up a second job and started working that, which really became more of a passion. So now we have this individual that had this full job here that was starting to really crumble and shake. So that little, okay, this is showing an earthquake. You know how you get they just said tremor. So it's those little tremors in you that we feel here, all right, in our solar plexus. We feel here, sometimes in our heart too, that starts to quake us. And then we start seeing the little cracks and crevices happening. And then what this individual did was started to articulate the dissatisfaction, then down the road, I feel like I want to do this. And then started pursuing this, and then actually took a second job, but still was with this first one, okay? But again, it's when you're starting to articulate that you're no longer interested in this work, or you're dissatisfied, and it's a pattern. It's a pattern of this. We all have bad days, right? But it's a pattern of just feeling like something isn't quite right anymore. Is this my journey? Is this really what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And then get, honestly, kind of depressed about it. So our higher self is poking us to say, hello, there's something else out there, but you got to be aware, and you got to wake up, and you got to not live in that lower energy all the time, thinking about that and repeating that cycle over again, but instead trying to grasp onto what is it that you do want to do. Okay, so that's really in a work situation. Well, it can also happen with people. And we all probably been there to one degree or another in a relationship where you're starting to see, okay, something's not feeling right here. And again, you continue with the pattern over the course of time. And this pattern continues and continues, and your feeling doesn't go away. Again, we all have days where we don't get along with an individual we're in a relationship with, whatever that relationship is. But at the same time, this is a continued pattern of that same angsty feeling. Because remember, our higher self speaks through our feelings and will present us with situations that will then allow us to act on those feelings. All right? So if you get a pattern of this feeling over time, this is your higher self trying to tell you something. It's not the one day every now and then across the course of a year. We all have situations that we're not real pleased with people, but it's about what you're feeling deep inside with this pattern over time with this relationship and this person. So these aren't necessarily in order, but you can look at these and kind of put them in an order probably for yourself when you look in the past. So again, this is feeling. What are you feeling over the course of time? Is it sticking with you? And is it uncomfortable? Does it bring you down to a place where you know you aren't meant to live in that kind of feeling day to day, be it a job, a relationship, anything you're involved in? Okay, so the second sign is, are you obsessed with staying in the thing? Are you obsessed? And I see this a lot in jobs or in agreements with other people that maybe someone has made in the past and they don't even know it's an agreement. But are you obsessed with doing the thing or staying in the thing? This also can have to do with a job. And it's outside kind of the norm. It's nobody can talk you into it. Nobody can shake you away from it. Doing the same thing you're doing. And it's like you're almost robotic in the sense that, nope, this is part of my life. This is the way it's going to be. Whether you articulate that or not. I'm in this job. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to do this. And then you keep doing it. And you keep doing it, and you keep doing it over time. Now remember, this is over time. And often what you're doing is you're staying in much longer than you should. When you start getting obsessed about the thing and addicted to the thing, because here's what happens. It is so important to the soul that you complete this contract, but the human has grabbed on to it and locked in, all right? And then doesn't even understand that they're supposed to let go. It very much... It has a feeling of being almost hypnotized. Okay, they keep talking robotic. Like you just keep doing the thing. And no one could talk you out of it. You're obsessed with doing the thing. All right, a lot of this has to do with jobs that we stay in forever and a day. A lot of us have contractual relationships with these jobs and the people that are in them. We may have a payback for somebody that we didn't quite get right last time in the previous incarnation. Or they may owe us something, all right? So it's about getting this lesson correct this time, so we have to stay in it for a period of time. But when you start getting super obsessed and nothing can pull you away, you know very likely you're in some kind of contractual situation. So I'm going to give you an example of this same person and their journey through what I'll call their karmic debt or their soul contract, where they had to come back and do it right. This individual stayed far too long in a almost abusive work situation, but it was underhanded in the sense of it had to do with over many, many, many years not getting paid appropriately, also ending up doing so much work that was, they just said backbreaking. Okay, yeah. It almost was like slave labor. In fact, this individual said this at one time. But what their situation was this was a past life situation where the individual in the job actually owed a financial debt to the owner of this current incarnation and their business from a life in the past where they had basically caused the business to go bankrupt and mismanaged the entire thing with this individual who was their partner in a past life business. So the person that is doing this work here, having this contract finish up, owed a huge debt, essentially, to the person they're working for in this lifetime because of that past life of mismanagement of the business, ill treatment of employees. And I could go into all the detail, but then that would give away the individual's privacy, and I don't want to do that. But it's a very intriguing story of how what this individual then did was come into this lifetime and kept staying in a job that was so low paying. Think about that. So low paying, never got much of a raise. It was awful. But guess what? What we see from an outsider's perspective isn't what is real necessarily. This was happening because the debt had to be paid off. The financial debt had to be paid off from the past life. Now, however, this individual was obsessed with staying in this job. Obsessed. Years and years and years of work. Back-breaking work. When honestly, it made no sense. This individual did not need to financially even be working at all. Didn't need to financially be working at all, which that's where you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, why does this not make any sense? But we don't understand how contracts work, right? So here this individual was working in a job that they financially didn't even need at all, but backbreaking labor, physically backbreaking labor, treated poorly because guess what? They had to experience what they did to other people in a past life and also pay off the financial debt. And so here we are looking from the outside in. And I remember saying, just quit, get out of this. You're done. Why do you do this? Why do you do this work? And it was an obsession. Talking about, yes, it may not be the right environment, but I'm here. I like the people. That part hadn't started to break down yet. The other crumbling down that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So the point in this is it's almost an addictive-like behavior. And it may not necessarily be time to leave that contract. That contract might not be up, but during the course of the contract, you're going to see almost an obsessive-like feeling of needing to do this thing or be with this person. Almost obsessive. So that's one of the signs and symptoms that you'll notice oftentimes when you're in a contract that needs to be fulfilled in this incarnation, but also maybe getting ready to come to an end, because you can't survive like that. You can't continue to live in a situation where you're obsessed or addicted to the thing your entire life. Your higher self is going to knock on the door. So the third symptom, and what I alluded to in this last one that I talked about, is you can't be talked sense into by anyone. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. You're still doing the thing. And you may hear them in some way and say, yeah, I know. And then you just keep doing the thing. More obsessively maybe than before. Others don't understand why you are still there or doing the thing you're doing or the relationship you're in. So number 4. The sacrifice to yourself and your well-being begins to be seen. The longer you stay after the contract has finished up or the karmic situation is paid off. And this is where things start going south. If you don't catch it when the contract is finished, your higher self is going to start poking you. And I have seen this in spades. Physical, emotional toll will start to happen. Now, these things don't happen overnight. They are a slow burn to that thing because you have time to get this connected in your human mind. However, like I said, it's very hard to do. Your higher self is still leading the way. It's how much are you wrapped up in your ego leading you and your human self leading you each day, and whether or not you hear your higher self. But the point in this is the sacrifice to your physical and emotional well-being will start to be seen. I have had many clients where they've stayed in a relationship too long, and oftentimes it's a marriage, where now their physical body is breaking down. Their body is speaking because they didn't hear otherwise. So they start taking on physical situations that are reflective of what's going on in the relationship, because guess what? It's breaking down. It's not meant to continue. Both sides have this happen, but one may to a greater degree, depending on the contractual situation. But again, physical, emotional toll. You may start having injuries. You may start having illnesses. You would be amazed. Your body may start reflecting this. Your body will be a reflection of a contract that has been said and done, particularly for some time. And getting out of that contract, if it's a relationship, or a job, is the way to start reversing that and then moving into your next contracts or your next lessons and having a more healthy understanding of that. But remember, most of us don't have that understanding again. So that's why I'm giving you these symptoms today, so you can start watching for them and understanding and really going deep inside to question yourself, why am I doing what I'm currently doing? It doesn't feel right anymore. And then start understanding that and seeing how it progresses over time. So again, it's with relationships that can happen. Your body will start speaking to you, physical, emotional toll. In the situation I'm talking about with this person where I'm using an example, what started to happen is they physically started having leg issues from standing all day, from having, very bad leg issues. And then parts of their body started breaking down. Arm and wrist issues from the labor done on the factory floor. It just kept going on and on. The breakdown started coming. And I saw it. I was saying, okay, you're done. Why don't you quit this job? You're having physical manifestations of a contract that has run its course. Now, I couldn't have said that because they didn't understand anything to do with this. But what I would hope for is that their higher self would continue to speak. But the problem we have is that in humankind, we go so far, so far, because of course we have a contract and we're almost addicted to it. And then all of a sudden the physical and emotional toll starts happening the further we get down and don't understand that we have a contract that's ended and we need to get out of it. All right, we need to get out of it. So that said, watch for anything that starts to become physically and emotionally devastating to you, because it can be devastating. It can be devastating. And so, again, coupling that with the feelings that you have, the understanding you have inside yourself, what's your gut knowing of this over time. Now, the fifth thing as a symptom, or that you can start telling if you're in a situation where a contract is ending, is guess what? Outside of all the things I just talked about, a crumbling down starts to happen. Okay, so they're showing the walls tumbling down. Oh, they just said brick by brick. And then they're showing pieces of mortar falling. And, oh, you know what they're showing? They're showing cannonballs being hit into the side of a castle. And so what happens is wrenches get thrown in the picture. Strange things start happening where basically, because the other stuff didn't work, or that's happening in tandem, they're saying, okay, we're going to make you listen. Boom. And here comes something from left field. And it may be an external force. A great example for a lot of people is the COVID virus. Oh boy, did that change things for people, right? With jobs. It probably helped people come out, oftentimes, of situations they were in that contracts were ending. All right. So these are external forces that are coming in, not just the internal you, not that part. The external forces will then come that you can't control. They just happen and you've got to deal with them. But it pounds you down further and further, breaks down those walls that you've created of that contract that hasn't allowed anything else in or for you to get out. And now the walls come tumbling down from something external that happens. And these are things you might not have seen at all coming, and usually aren't things you'll see at all. It may be all of a sudden you're fired from your job, or, and that's pretty extreme, but it happens all the time. So that's a message and a sign. It may be a situation where you're not given a promotion, you're not given the raise, you're continuing to be treated in a certain manner, and it gets worse and worse. You may get a new boss who is a nightmare. There are things that will be inserted in your pathway, also relationship-wise. There are things that will be inserted in your pathway. Oh, okay, they just said stumbling blocks. Oh, okay, so they just said until you trip and fall flat on your face. So the idea here is you come into the stumbling blocks. Okay, so they're really showing this. They get put in your way, and I could name a gazillion things that come in and can crack us open to help us understand that, wait a minute, these are signs and messages all around. I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore. And then we are to take action, right? But we're not really good at that as humans. But the point is these stumbling blocks come and get put in our way. And sometimes we'll just walk around and we'll look and we'll wonder, why are all those stumbling blocks or those rocks in my way, those pebbles, those stones, those boulders in my way? Why is that as I'm traveling down my path and my journey? Well, guess what? Just like the dam on the flow of the stream that I've talked about in the past, all of a sudden, one day you're going to come up to a wall of boulders and not be able to get through. And what that is all these things that have come in your way of signs and messages, and you now have broken down the walls of the contract that you've been working in, and now all of a sudden you are just laid bare because you've had so many things happen to you, and you're at such a point where you realize this is no longer sustainable. Now, we hope not everybody has to get to that level, but it happens, and it's happened to me. I've seen it where I didn't listen because I didn't know. I didn't understand. Now I see real clearly when these things are happening because of the intuitive gifts that have opened up for me and that I understand and I can see. But the point is we don't all have that in our journey. So humans will take themselves down to the lowest point possible, and oftentimes they will not even listen to those signs and messages until their whole world comes crumbling down. And now guess what happens? The next symptom is you could likely end up going through your dark night of the soul. Okay? It doesn't mean everybody's going to have a dark night of the soul. You may just continue to live in that manner, but you're going to be at such a suppressed, lower energetic level, it's going to be really hard to get out of, all right? So if you're living in a situation where you're dispassionate, unhappy, nothing's working in your life, literally, and that happens to all of us at one point or another. We feel like nothing is going right at all in our relationships and our jobs, and you feel it inside of yourself that you're not who you're meant to be. Start taking a look at some of the things I talked about here today and see how they apply to you. Where in your life may you be staying with something that makes no sense to stay with any longer because you've been told you have to do that in our human constructs we've created, when in reality, you're meant to keep moving on in your journey, to keep learning and to move forward in that and not stay stuck at this low energetic level. You're supposed to become that light. You're supposed to be able to become who you want to be, not stay in things that no longer serve you. Because our journey is meant to have all kinds of learning and experiences. And during that time, picking up on when we know that has come and gone. Now, a lot of us have done a really good job of moving on from these contracts, but most of us get stuck in certain situations where we just feel like we can't get out and this is just the way my life's going to be forever. No. So what started to happen with the individual that I was talking about with the example, the crumbling down of the walls and what could have potentially turned into a dark night of the soul situation, which did not, turned out that all this extraneous stuff started to happen. For example, there was mistreatment, ill treatment, safety issues in the factory that were becoming undeniable. The company was growing into an empire and people were becoming even more and more mistreated. It was becoming a situation of how much can we get out of everybody and treat them poorly at the same time and underpay them. It even became worse there. These things started popping in. COVID showed up, all right? Well, guess what that did? That shut the business down for a while. And during this time, this individual said, you know what? I'm not comfortable going back in there. They're calling everybody back to work right away. And many others weren't comfortable doing that. But this individual had the financial means not to have to go back. So guess what? They didn't go back. So again, that's when they made their decision to end the contract, even though they didn't even know they had a contract, right? But their higher self was giving them this opportunity. All these things from the outside were coming in to say, okay, hello, you're kind of coming to the end here. You got to get out of this contract. Because what can happen, as I said earlier, is some of these very severe situations or these big contracts, if we're in them too long, as they start crumbling and falling apart, they can take us into our dark night of the soul. Now, you may say, well, that's good and well because you're going to wake up. Yes, but I firmly believe, and I have also been told, that we have the opportunity to swim above the dark night of the soul, like get it right, like, okay, we're going to make these decisions, and we may do this, right? And here's the dark night of the soul. But if we wait too long, then our higher self is going to say, okay, we don't have any choice but to give you the dark night of the soul that you had planned in case you didn't wake up to this journey and move on. Now, that said, we can still wake up. We can still wake up in many ways of not having to go through that dark night. But what I'm going to tell you now is these contracts that come to a screeching halt or that come to such a severe place, they can be the impetus for this huge awakening that we have. And I do believe we often have choices of whether it is an awakening that is a gradual approach to things where we see things from more of our gut knowing, our feelings, our intuition, or we can get slammed open awake. Now, again, because we're not taught this, we don't understand how to maneuver through this. But you folks, as individuals who understand ascension, and many of you are already awake, going through your awakening journey, now you can use some of this to look at your own journey and assist yourself forward, as well as help others as they're starting to go through their awakening journey. You're going to know, because you're going to also be able to look back in your past, use some of these 6 different symptoms and say, wow, wait a minute. Did that happen to me there? Oh, it did. I didn't even know it. And now you're going to be able to use this moving forward in your journey, because here's the thing. We are to live through multiple contracts, through multiple situations, to live and learn and grow from, not to be brought down into a low energy and stomped on and kept there in that contract. So today, I hope I've helped you understand a bit about some of the things that you can look at and see as you are working a contract. You might not even be aware is a contract, but if you start seeing some of these symptoms, that may be a trigger for you to look more deeply as to, is this part of my journey forward? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And we don't always know what we're supposed to be doing, because that is part of this life journey. But it is also about taking that moment now, looking at ourselves, seeing the patterns and the complexities. Where are we in that journey? How do we feel about the thing we're in, the relationship we're in, the job we're in, what we're doing? And then start taking that internally and making different choices. So today, as I always say, I hope you take one little puzzle piece away for your own puzzle of a life journey and use that as you move forward. So as I always do, I'll leave you with my services, purplerainhealing.com, where I do channeling for you, 3 different types. Distance energy healing, where I'm now offering 30-minute healing sessions focused strictly on the energy healing. They are so powerful. And you can also get an email overview of the session as well. So check out my energy healing sessions, including the ones with the very long documents of channeled information. I also am a spiritual awakening mentor, and I would love to work with you on your awakening journey and support you during that through channeled information as well as one-on-one conversation. Thank you again for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video.